qualitative research. So my topic today, I'll try to go through what research is, the research process. That's at 12 o'clock. I've got only 1 hour, 30 minutes. I don't think I can finish without. So what is research? The research process, the types of research, qualitative research defined, key features of qualitative research, types of qualitative research, and centrality of a PhD. Okay, so maybe we may end up at number 5 if possible. I don't know, depending on the questions that come up. So as I mentioned, you can get this version of the book, or you can wait till next month and get the other one. It's up to you. I don't want to put any pressure on anybody, but there are 2 different books. Okay, so topic 1, defining research. Now, I will not go into trying to ask you what research is. Everybody has heard of research before. Simply, everybody thinks, most people believe that research is an investigation to a particular topic or social or business phenomena for a person who is in a business school. Now, this particular word investigation tends to connote a lot of things. People think that anytime anybody is on a fact-finding mission, it means that it's a research. So every investigation that has an objective to investigate is research. But when we come to academia, especially in business research and social science research, we try to go a little bit beyond saying that investigations are research. Why? Because we appreciate that research itself has to have some form of systematic way of doing it, some form of organization, some form of objective of finding answers to questions. So every time you have these 4 building blocks are present in a research activity, then you can see you are doing research from the social science perspective, or from the perspective or purpose of this class. Research is appreciated as a systematic way of finding answers to questions. A systematic and organized way, and finding answers to questions. Now, the 2 words that are systematic and organized tend to emphasize the fact that the first one is systematic, meaning that every research has to have some scientific procedures that you should follow. And the fact that following scientific procedures means that we should also appreciate the scientific discipline the person is coming from whenever we are evaluating what is research. So if I come from marketing, I say what is research to a marketer, he has to reflect on what are the scientific principles in marketing that govern research in marketing. So that when I finish and I present my results to an audience of marketers, they can appreciate that this is acceptable within the remits of the scientific procedures that marketing scientists or marketing scientists have to follow. The same thing with finance, the same thing with accounting, the same thing with HR, the same thing with risk, the same thing with banking, the same thing with any other dimensions of research, including information systems and operations research. All of them have to find, understand, and appreciate as a researcher which scientific discipline do I belong to, and what are the procedures and principles that govern that scientific discipline that I should follow. Why is it important? So that you can get reliable and accurate results. Why is it important? So that we can be able to have a system of judging and evaluating. Why is it important? So that at the end of the day, when we sit in Kumasi and I see you sit in New York and you say you have done this marketing research and you have adhered to all the principles, I, the reviewer of the journal that I submitting to, I can be able to check whether you have done follow the principles and ascertain that the work was done well and allow you to publish in that marketing journal. So the systematic way of finding answers to questions refers to the scientific procedures and principles that govern that science or discipline. This is one of the reasons why sometimes we have a lot of political pundits on the radio arguing, maybe somebody from social science and somebody from an engineering background, and they're arguing on how should we look at development, or how should we look at an issue within a particular economic region or a particular context. Like maybe you're looking at development in maybe Dumpuasi. One person is looking into access to job as an economist. Another person is looking at the fact that whether some cultural or social values are being destroyed and certain cultural artifacts are being tampered with. So everybody is looking at what matters to the scientific discipline they belong to. And all of them are trying to improve the livelihoods of the people in one way or the other, but they come from a different perspective. Even a medical scientist may even have what he may define as needful for that community may be different as compared to what may be defined as needful by an economist or by a financial analyst. Now, this is one of the reasons why we all argue that multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approaches to research matter, because society itself is multifaceted. And because it's multifaceted, when we are trying to do research in that area and trying to solve society, we need to think about how the multiple types of diversity of knowledge coming from diverse scientific backgrounds can help solve the problem. But this is what we say when we go outside the world. However, when you find yourself before a PhD, the most important thing on the day of the Viva is, are you an ambassador of the discipline that you are saying you are doing a PhD in? So when you check public admin and we check your PhD and we check your answers to your question, have you followed all the principles? Have you actually also listened to the theorists within the public admin literature? And have you followed that one so that we can graduate you as an ambassador of that area? So doing a research at the PhD level, as a PhD student, always know your discipline and know where your discipline is actually the principles and the scientific principles and procedure of the discipline. You have been able to ascertain and learn them and comprehend them well so that you can be able to adhere to it. I was just working with a PhD student and he was working on something that's in healthcare and technology. And then in trying to point out the gap in the study, he has emphasized more on the healthcare issues. And I asked him a question that, are you going to get a PhD in healthcare? If you're not going to get a PhD in healthcare, then look at the technology issues that you're going to try and get a PhD in. Because the discipline is what you are standing for. You're not standing for healthcare. So the discipline and the issues in the discipline should precede the other context of application. So the discipline is one, then the context of application is healthcare. So you have to understand that sometimes you as a student, you have a situation in which, yes.
The line kept breaking. I was just prompting.
Oh, okay. That one, there's no music, the internet. So if you didn't hear something, then tell me to repeat your part. So is there any part that you lost out?
No, it's okay. I'm fine.
Thank you very much. Good. Okay. So the discipline that you belong to informs the way you do the research. So sometimes you have a person who may be doing the research, and the research that he's trying to do is coming from the discipline, and the context of application is in the same discipline. Let me explain it very well. Somebody can do something in marketing, but he will apply it in public sector. The same thing somebody can do in marketing, apply it in the marketing division of a business. Those are two different things. Somebody can do something in finance and apply it to government, which is also the public sector indirectly. Or somebody can still do something finance and apply it to the telecom industry. Now, he has to be very careful that he doesn't look at the put prime focus on the telecommunications sector over the financial issues that he wants to, or problem that you or rationale for the research. It's not that the telecommunications sector is the context of application or the domain of application, if that's the right word, the domain of application. But the area that he's researching on is still in finance. So we have situations in which people are not very careful of what they are doing and where the domain is. You are likely to have sometimes somebody doing research and the domain is still in the same area where the discipline is. But there are certain times that students will do research, but the domain is not in the area where the discipline is. Okay. I hope you have understood me. So systematic means that there is a definite set of scientific procedures and principles which the researcher has to follow in order to get reliable and accurate or comparable results. The next thing is that even though we are saying systematic, there is also some steps which are generic to all, irrespective of whether I come from finance, come from healthcare, come from risk, come from banking, come from information system, come from HR, come from accounting. Irrespective of all of these things I've mentioned, you are going to have some organization. Organized means that there is a structure, there's a method of collecting, of carrying out the data, of doing the research. And those steps can be put together to be able to guide the researcher. For example, every research in carrying out the research is finding answers to questions. So by the time you finish your research, there's going to be an output. There's also going to be a question that would have guided you to go to the field. And there's also going to be a questionnaire that will guide you to collect data from that particular field of study. And there's also going to be an opportunity for you to interpret the data in light with what the research you are carrying out, and see that what are the findings that came out at the end of the day from the the research that you have made up your mind you want to carry out. So you have organized systematic, and every research is finding answers to questions. Now, the answer can be yes, no, or maybe, but they are all answers. So sometimes even inconclusiveness is an answer in research. Inconclusiveness is an answer that somebody can unravel in the future. Number two, because there's an answer that you arrive at, there's always also a question. Now we argue that the centrality, I'm going to take my time and explain this because it's a very important point you should know. The centrality of every research is the question that is being asked. The centrality of every research is the question that is being asked. The centrality of every research is the question that is being asked. What does it mean? It means that to begin the research process, you have a quest. The quest is hinged on a question. Now, that question should be focused on relevant and useful, important. That research should be focused on relevant and useful, important questions. Why? Because the research itself is driven by the questions you ask. The questions tells you who you should interview, which domain the study is focusing on. Who in that domain do you really want to talk to? The question will drive the purpose of the study, to also drive where you want to arrive at. So, what is central to every research is the question you're asking, not necessarily the topic. The question you're asking on the topic. For every given topic, there could be several questions for it. An example, you have witnessed decline in employee productivity. Now, somebody can ask a question from the research perspective on what are the economic factors that influence decline in employee productivity? If coming from finance. Somebody can ask another question. To what extent that employee satisfaction influence employee productivity? Now, satisfaction is a term that may be drawn as an internal customer. So we are drawing it from marketing, and it can also be drawn from HR. What is the impact of digital platforms on employee productivity? That could be another question from IT. How does the job design influence employee productivity? That can come from HR. So what I'm trying to do is to show you different ways in which the employee productivity can be researched on. So the topic is still employee productivity, but all the questions, all the examples I give are different research opportunities. Different research opportunities. So what drives your research is the question you are asking, the quest, not necessarily the topic. After the topic, everybody can have the topic. But the question you ask about the topic is what differentiates my research from your research. I've seen students trying to jealously protect their research topics. Now, and they forget that it's not about the topic, it's more about what the question. Now, the research topic is just the area of the research. So, for example, consumer behavior is a research topic. Organizational performance is a research topic. SME financing is a research topic. Corporate governance is a research topic. But when we say corporate governance, where? Then we are adding a domain or context to it. Then that leads us from a topic to more of a title. Okay. So what is central to the research is the question that is being asked. Any questions? The research question gives you direction for the study, and that direction establishes the boundary. Which data do I need? Which data don't I need? It tells you the target audience. It defines the phenomenon. So employee productivity is a phenomenon. It defines the context. Sometimes a research question can tell you that we are trying to examine or explore the impact of social media on pharmacies in Ghana. Now, Ghana is now the context. Pharmacy is the domain, but it's also the same target audience. Okay. Then the research question can also tell you the extent of resources that you need, because you might now know where you have the boundary and the target. So it tells you that you can then infer on the resources that you need. Then you can also, then when you have be able to determine the resources that you need, you can then be able to come up with a plan and budget. So the research question has a lot, if it's well carved or well curated or written, it can do a lot. It can do a lot. Okay. Please, any question so far? Any questions so far? Right. Nobody said.
I don't have any question, but I'm enjoying it.
Okay, so if you're enjoying it, let me take an example. So let me see somebody who I can worry. Caroline Hokonu, if Hokonu. So Caroline, please, what did you take from the first set of slides, the topic one that I covered? Any one thing that came into your mind?
Thank you, Prof. It's funny you singled me out. I've been busy doing something in the background, but that's a little confession. Well, what I pick is that the research question is very important. It kind of guides you to answer the question or to solve a problem systematically. So out of the research question, you are able to know at a point in time whether to turn left or turn right.
Okay. This answer you are giving is the generic answer everybody will give. Not from what I've seen.
Okay, so.
No, it's okay. Let me take from someone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Prof, I'm not, it's not about control. I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Hello, Prof. I want to find out what is the difference then between research topic and then research interest area? Because most often you meet professors who will tell that this is their research area. Because so looking at the example you give, relating to
the question you have asked is, the question you have asked is, there are a lot of, what car do you drive?
So the question I'm asking is that
what car do you drive?
I drive Corolla.
How many Toyotas?
Toyota Corolla.
So your research interest is Toyota Corolla. But your research topic is Toyota. You understand it?
Not so much clear.
Your research topic is Toyota. Your research interest is Toyota Corolla. So your Corolla is what you can respectfully say. Listen to me. Your Corolla is what you respectfully say, what you can have and use adequately for the place you are living and your lifestyle currently. So that is of interest to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Class, do you understand? I don't know.
Thank you, Prof. Yes, it's clear now.
No, you. I'm asking the class. You understand the analogy?
No, please.
Richard Brian, do you understand the analogy?
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Thank you very much. There's still a hand up, so let the person who has an hand, Benis, your hand is up.
I just wanted to say something. What you've taught us so far, I think you made the point that we should also usually concentrate on an area of discipline, and the fact that sometimes there can be a generic topic or a generic issue. However, how you tackle it from your point of discipline can make a difference. So if I'm inferring that to this analogy, then it's more or less like because my colleague is saying that he uses the Corolla, then it's more or less like there might be an interest in corollary research, even though there might be a generic issue on maybe cars or something like that?
Yes, please. That is what it actually means. But even in a narrow sense, I can say it's a person who likes Toyota, and for his current lifestyle, he has afforded, the lifestyle has afforded Corolla. I hope you understand me. I'm not saying that the Corolla is the only car you can buy. I'm just trying to let you understand that this is a choice of now. So that means that in some of you right now, 3 years to come, the topic you chose for your PhD, you will even choose it again. But you are still doing your PhD. Like what I mean by 3 years, you finish you graduate and you'll be looking, you close the book, you may not open it again. Because your interest would have become different. Research interest is influenced by so many things, which we'll talk about later. Okay. You can even be influenced by the country that you are in. I can imagine some of the finance students are now thinking about Ghana going back to IMF. That is what they will be doing for their PhD if you don't take care. Because that is what may be interesting to them. So what is happening now? Anyway, finance, how many of you are here? So that I can worry you small.
Prof, we are here.
Boys, what are you? Okay.
Prof, we are here. We are about 10 here.
Saeed,
Isaac.
Achi, Derek, okay, Francis. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Francis, do you have a question? Boys, do you have a question?
We are hero. We are many.
Okay, don't worry. Isaac Abo Mensa. Hey, Isaac Abo Mensa, are you related to Professor?
No.
Okay. I thought Abo was a name from the north, and you have Mensa is a name from the south. So how did you combine the two? This guy, you are wild.
Explain to you later.
Okay, we have to do research on your name. Okay, so the research process. The research process is the organizing part of it. So you are taking one of them, organized. Now the systematic is what if I was trying to teach you last year, paradigms and all this kind of stuff. The fact that there are principles that is one part of the systematic, understanding the philosophy of research based on the discipline you come from. So how does what's the philosophy of financial research? What's the philosophy of marketing research? What's the philosophy of information systems research? That is what part of what Professor taught you last semester. If you remember, critical realism, interpretive, positivism, constructivism, relativism, all the isms that you've forgotten. You have packed your books and closed them and passing the course is what you just wanted to do. So you don't remember the isms.
Oh, we haven't recovered from shocks.
Okay, so I'll try to make it more relevant to what we are teaching now. Okay. So you learned the isms last year. That was taking care of the systematic part. Now I'm going to teach you the organizing part. The organizing says that there are some steps in the research process. Every research process has generically selecting a topic, focusing a question, designing the study, collecting data, analyzing the data, interpreting the data, and informing others. And it's all underpinned on the theory. We'll talk about theories later. So when you take a PhD work like this is how it looks like. Ideally, a good PhD may have about 8 or 7 chapters. So you start from preliminary pages, chapter 1, where you introduce your phenomenon you want to study, establishes the problem, tell us the right question you want to ask, the right objectives, the significance, and the synopsis of chapters. Then you go to, now, can you see that I've moved to the spirit of the course? What I was doing all was the letter of the course. Now I moved to the spirit of the course. Can you understand it now?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
We are following.
I know you are following, but do you understand what I'm trying to do? We're looking at the letter of the course where I was just telling you what the research is. Now I move to the spirit of the course, helping you to do your PhD. Now I'll be swapping between these two worlds a lot. So you have to always know where I am. Am I in the spirit of the course? Am I in the letter of the course? Now, if I'm the spirit of the course, listen more attentively than the letter of the course. I have a letter to somebody can write a book now and to change everything. But the spirit of the course is what will cause you to lead you to survive. So spend more time listening to the spirit issues than the letter issues. There's a spirit given light and the letter kill it. So focus more on the people focus on the letter and they get discouraged about their PhD. Okay, hold on. So focus more on the spirit issues than the letter. The letter can discourage you all the time, but the letter is important to get the fund to write the PhD. But the spirit is helping you to be able to make sure that you finish and know what you're doing. Okay, so let's continue. So chapter 2 is the literature review. Sometimes some people bring the context of study before the literature review, depending on the type of PhD supervisor you have. Then you have the chapter 3, the theoretical foundation and conceptual framework. Chapter 5, the methodology. Chapter 6, the results and analysis. Chapter 7, discussion and conclusion. Now, let me point out that your supervisors that you supervise, it's always good to go and look at the PhDs that supervised before, so you can get an idea of their structure. Because sometimes supervisors have got some peculiar structures which are quite unique to them or strange. Some of us were taught in UK, some of us were taught in the US, some of us were taught in Ukraine, others were taught in Russia, others were taught in Ghana. Now, when you have a combination of all of these, some were taught in Finland, and they are supervising your supervisory team. The lead supervisor may be taught in Ukraine, and his outline and the understanding of research may be looking different, but he's the lead, he's the final say. The one who was taught in UK may have a different view. Americans write very short PhDs, sometimes 6 chapters, 7 chapters. UK like long PhDs. You end up having about 8 chapters, 9 chapters. My PhD was like 9 chapters. So if you are not very careful, I don't know what Ukraine and Russia do. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're not very careful, you'll be following a PhD style of your supervisor's area of research or where you went to school. So you have to be very careful and watch it well. You end up showing with the UK one, he'll get angry with you and it may cost you. The PhD, passing the PhD depends on the lead supervisor. So listen to the lead supervisor very well. I think the lead supervisor, by now, most of you know your lead supervisor. He is the one who admitted you into the program. So be careful you are listening to him. If you come and do PhD prostitution, where what I mean by PhD prostitution is that the lead supervisor brings you into the program and you spend your time more on the other ones who didn't bring you into the program, you can have a hiccup in the project, in the PhD itself. So be careful of where your allegiances and alliances are. Some students are very funny. They get invited into the PhD by one lead. Then when they get in after 1 year, say, oh, now I've seen the light. I would like to work with this person. Forgetting that the person who brought you in vouched for you. So it was at the graduate school knows that you under his name. So I'm not very careful. That's the right thing to do is that when they are submitting the list of PhDs who have admitted, they give the supervisory team, the lead and the other people the lead wants to work with. And some departments are different. But this is the best way. As been on HOD before, I know that this is the best way they do it. The lead and the other members of the team. Now the lead may not like working with some people, so it's very, very careful. We have had this in other departments where you have a lead who doesn't like working with the other people who have been assigned to him. That means that he was not given an opportunity to choose his own other people. Or the student goes to choose a topic which the lead is interested in, but it's in a domain in which the second one is the one who is good in. So you bring a very funny combination of people. So the lead is the one who has to make sure that everybody works together and gel well. I remember I went to a Viva and I was the chairman. And the person who was the student was in public admin. I think she's a lecturer now in the public admin department. The student was in the public admin. The supervisor who was second was from HR. Then the third one was public admin. And I think the fourth one was also public admin or something like that. Yeah. But according to what I realized from the discussion of the student and doing the presentation, it seems that he was largely helped by the HR person more than the public admin faculty, in the sense that the topic was coming from HR, but the domain was in public admin, something like that. So you end up having such interesting combinations. You have to know who you are. I've in the University of Manchester, where I did my PhD, I witnessed a student who had that problem and he struggled a lot to finish his PhD. And sometimes the lead can do a very good job to bring everybody together. Sometimes it's very difficult too, because you are dealing with human beings and they have all got different temperaments. So pray more about the people you're working with, that they can work together for your own good and you finish it on time. Okay, so this is the outline that I've given to you. Okay, then the preliminary page is according to graduate school as of today. As of today means I can change. The declaration is the page that you declare that I, Kojo Boateng, did the work myself and everything. That is a page that the supervisors will sign. The declaration page is the page that supervisors will sign. So there's a cover page, there's a title page, there's a declaration, there's an abstract, dedication, acknowledgement, table of contents, list of figures, and list of tables. Research background, problem, purpose, objectives, questions, significance, and per chapters. If you do a good PhD, it will count well and you finish on time. Currently, by God's grace, my PhD students consecutively for the past 2 academic years have been winning the best teaching thesis award in the whole College of Humanities. So you can imagine how much good work we are putting into it. So please, that's why I'm saying that if you come to my lecture, listen to the spirit, listen to the letter, but remember the spirit more, because that's what will help you finish the PhD. Okay. Any questions on the outline? In case some students have some questions based on where they come from, where they have schooled, anything. Some of you are lecturers in other universities, so that's why I'm respectfully asking if there's any question. When you don't ask questions or you don't say anything, it means I have to take it that everybody's okay.
Yes, I am okay.
Look.
So I draw thanks for the feedback. At least give me a feedback that okay is even better, because when I ask you, nobody answers, I don't know where I am.
Okay. So we're enjoying it too. I'm enjoying it.
Say for you. Somebody is doing something else. So say for you. Okay, Sheila, are you okay?
Yes, Prof. I'm fine, Prof. I'm really following. And
okay, so Zubis.
I thank
Zubs Sally.
Yes, I'm here, Prof.
Okay.
Really insightful, especially the spread part.
Okay, so let's go.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Now, the research process and research design is not the same. Now, what am I saying? This is what we call design. This part, the chapter 5, is the design of the study. Is the design of the study. The process is the whole thing. The design is a subset of it. So don't think that the research design is the whole work. The research design is what is happening here. But it also depends on the two, this one and this one. So the research design, oh, sorry, I don't think you can see my let me use annotate the screen. My mouse. Chapter 5.
Oh,
what is happening here?
Please, we're not seeing, I don't see, okay.
So the chapter 5, that's what I'm saying. The research design is this one. The whole work here is what we call the research process. When you go through the whole activity. So the research design is what happens here. So it's a subset of the whole process. So the researchers plan on how to implement the research in practice, known as the research design. It describes how and when and where data will be collected and how the data will be analyzed. So if you look at the diagram, the outline here, the research design is this guy, chapter 5, and then how it will be analyzed and how it will be interpreted. But it all depends on this guy too, these two guys. Some chapter 2 and chapter 3. Okay. So we are good. The design is a subset of the process. So let's just appreciate that part. So what is important for you to know that this diagram that you see here, it's not a linear diagram, it's a cyclical diagram. Why? Because the thing happens in a realistically in a cyclical manner, with the flexibility of you going back to the previous processes, and also knowing that when you choose this, when you make any decision in any of the arms of the research cycle, it can affect any other arm. That is why you see the theory impact on all of them. So for example, I choose that I want to do my study in markets in Ghana. The question is that I have to ask myself, do I have access to Medina market, Abushi market, Kumasi market, Takoradi market, in case I'm collecting from 3 different towns or 3 different regions? Do I have access? You choose that you want to do a study on past presidents. Ask yourself that, do you have access to the past presidents? You choose that you want to do a study on quantitative study looking at people's perception of Ghana going to IMF. Do you have ability to interpret quantitative data? Do you appreciate structural equation modeling? In case, because at the PhD level, you are supposed to bring some moderators and then some mediators in your work. Can you be able to use the two softwares, either PLS or Amos? Can you be able to use any of these two? If you are not, don't go and jump and say that you are a PLS expert when you are not. So whatever choices you are making affect the other ones. In case your PhD is by publication, how you are going to inform others, can you be able to find distinct chapters, distinct research gap that can be related together, that can, each of them can write a paper on their own, then you can put it together as one page. If you are writing a comprehensive monogram, like one big document, like what most of us do, then are you going to have a PhD topic and gap that is sustainable enough that it will stand the test of the 3 or 4 years you have? I have people who started a PhD that year 1, the gap was there. By the time they go to year 2, the gap has been completely exhausted in the field of study, in the area of research, that it means it was no longer a gap. By the time he finishes in year 3, year 4, or year 3, the thing is outdated to the whole discipline, and you are not doing an updated PhD. I went to do a viva for somebody in Manchester University, and because of the pandemic, the PhD was outdated at the time we were doing the viva, and they told everybody that, please, all examiners, mark the thing as if the person finished the PhD before the pandemic. Because if you mark it today, the person will fail. So we all had to make up our minds like pre-pandemic issues. And then we mark the thing pre-pandemic, because the pandemic had thrown the whole thing apart. It was not relevant, it was not needed anymore. So please, when you are choosing topics, I'll come back to the spirit. When you are choosing topics and areas of interest of research, make sure that it's of relevance. It's like you are building a house and you are taking 10 years to build your house, and you want to give your wife the best house that you, and the family the best house you can live in, and you use designs that are currently the best design in East Lagos and everything. By the time you finish building, they are in 10 years time, they have stripped down that East Lagos building that you saw. Now put a new building up, and the designs are outdated. So the community that you are building the house in, everybody has lived on. Maybe your house is very nice if it was still built in some, maybe some village somewhere in another town, and now that would be the epitome of beauty or architectural beauty in that town. But today, East Lagos has moved away from that design you wanted to build. So you have to pull down your house or put something in front of your house to make it look very good and beautiful as of now. Even the building styles and designs have changed. Why am I trying to say that? I'm trying to emphasize that sometimes when students are choosing topics, they choose it with a very narrow focus on what they are seeing right now, or even what they even saw, their supervisor saw some 6 years ago. But it may not be relevant in 10 years' time, or even 3 years' time, or 4 years' time. Okay. Now, please, how that one will be solved is not a question of today's lecture. But I'm just trying to let you understand. I have a best eye view of the research process, so that when you choose a topic, ask yourself that, is it relevant for tomorrow? Is it relevant by the time I finish work? Is there some substance? Is there some enough currency in my work that in 6 years' time, or in 5 years' time, when I finish my PhD, it can be of relevant at that time? Okay, I'm sorry, I saw some students were posting things in the chat room. Those of you who are in a place that you can't talk. Oh, okay. Jewel, okay. Jewel Thompson, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to worry you. So, Jewel, what did you hear in the part 1, part 2?
So part 2, you were discussing not the method, but essentially the process in which we conduct our research and the things that we need to be considerate of. So you spoke of 2 points. The first point being the fact of the supervising team that makes up your research, because they influence a lot of the decisions, and you need to make sure that they are essentially harmonized, because that can impact the direction of your research. And then the point too that you were making just recently was the fact that when we are conducting our research, a prime thing or considering a research topic, the prime thing that's most important is relevance, ensuring that whatever we're considering of interest or that we're going to explore, investigate, we need to make sure that it can kind of outlast, in a sense, time. So that can implicate a lot of our work. So we just need to be very somewhat forward thinking and then think about just, I guess, the data, the approach, all of that, and how that will influence what we're doing so that something like a pandemic or any other like catastrophic event won't influence the direction in which our research is going. So just really thinking big and trying to do something that's relevant, specific to our areas of study as well. So that's what I call it.
Thank you very much, Joe. What department are you in?
Marketing.
Okay. I knew that's marketing. Okay. So, but I knew it already. Okay. So, greetings to everybody who has to be greeted back at home. Okay.
We respond.
Okay then. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay. So, let's continue. Now we are on types of research. So there are different types of research, but it depends on how you are defining it. There is a type of research that looks into the application of research. Who is the recipient of the research work that we are doing? Who is going to be the beneficiary of the research work? It has a definition, a type of research. So every beneficiary has an expectation. That gives us a different type of research. Then why are we doing the research? Like she mentioned, explore. So there's exploratory research. And somebody else earlier mentioned something about he wants to try and explain something. So explanatory research. So there's also why we are doing the research. Then there's also who the researcher is. Like what Professor was teaching you last year. What kind of philosophy do you bring to the research? What does the researcher like? Then there's the last, there's also the time dimension of the research, which I'll also talk about. Now, when we talk about whom is the recipient of research, who is the target audience of research, we have two types of research in that categories. So in that category, we have got basic research and got applied research. For the basic research, the recipient of the research is the scientific community. Scientific community always are looking at the rigor of arriving at the research outcome, not just the outcome. They are more concerned about the rigor. So that audience is much more focused on the systematic part and the organized part. Those two parts of those two principles in the definition of research. They focus more on the systematic and the organization. Those two. Now, the applied part are those who are looking for the research for policy and for practice perspective, so industry. They are looking at more of the answer. So they focus on the answer part of the definition of research. That's why the definition I gave you was very, very important. There are several definitions of research, but I wanted to use that one because it's going to be the frame for the order I teach. So they are more concerned about the answer and the question that you are solving. So what do you want to question and what's the answer? So that they can make informed practice, informed decision, investments, and policies based on an intervention in the community, based on what is the outcome. Because of that, they can have what we call evaluation research, that is assessing maybe an intervention and this evaluation and evaluating to see that whether we have been able to gain any effectiveness out of it. So if I've heard about monitoring and evaluation, it falls under applied research. But yes, the monitoring does it as the research, the project is going on. Then the evaluation can happen at the end of the research. So you monitor and evaluate at the same time. Then there's also social impact assessment, which some of you are conversant with. Most of the NGOs do that one. Now, those ones, you see that and you are going to put a borehole in, let's say, a community in Abetifi, where I come from. Now, that community are going to put a borehole there. You need to be able to understand what is the potential impact of that borehole when it's placed in that particular place, so that you may do an impact assessment. For all you know, you may do your research and realize that the community doesn't want to be a ball, they want a football park, or they want better internet access. So even though if you put a borehole that may be relevant, it could become a white elephant when they think that the borehole is actually disrupting the social cohesion that you have. For example, women like walking to the riverside to go and fetch water. That is the time that they get away from their husbands and have their chit chats. And the husbands who are happy for the women to get away from them for that time. As soon as you bring a borehole, everybody knows that the borehole is at the city center. So the distance to the city center, where the home, usually the houses are built around the city center. So we can easily all walk to the place. Now you have changed the dynamics of that time, that alone time that the women wanted and men wanted. And that can lead to other social consequences that you don't know about. So exploring these things are important. And even the NGO are happy because the school children can easily come and fetch water while they're in school, and doesn't disrupt their education, and they can come to school on time. But that's one that is solving that schooling problem. It's not solving the other social problem that they have at home. So later on, in 5 years' time, you start realizing that the homes are breaking apart, but you may not realize that it may be triggered by the position of the ball. That's one problem that we, the researchers, we don't assess the effects of some of these little decisions that we make. Has anybody watched Blood Diamond and then Hotel Rwanda? Anybody? In the US, I remember when I was doing my postdoc, to teach you things like this, the lecturer will come to class and tell you, go and watch, we'll take you to a movie and go and watch Hotel Rwanda together. After that, then you start coming and teach. And by the time you finish teaching, you realize that you understand research better by watching that video or watching any of these videos I just mentioned. Because you'll be using a lot of how social research occurs and how social behavior informs and decisions across the world inform activities in a remote part of the world. Okay, Saeed says he has watched it. Saeed, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, that you can be sitting in the US making decisions and can affect a small town that they don't even know that what you said is what actually triggered an event that is happening in their town. And it happens a lot. Yeah. So what we are saying, trying to emphasize here is about social impact assessment. Now, as future researchers and future faculty in which I give you the respect for them, because I know some of you are going to be professors in future. You'll be doing to survive in academia in Africa. You'll be doing research here in terms of consultancy to survive here. Here doesn't pay well. This one I'm talking about the spirit in the future. Here doesn't pay well too much. So you do research here and consultancies here, then you use it to look after yourself here. You get money to do more research here, and then you use it to publish here. But in the US, government puts a lot of money in this part, and the industry puts a lot of money in this part. So a researcher can choose to live here or live here. But Ghana, you can't just go to industry and be a researcher unless you are in finance and you can go and join Bank of Ghana or a bank. But some of the other research discipline, like you see a researcher, you go to a researcher in let's say HR, and you go and become a researcher in HR in MTN. It will not work. You have to go as a professional in MTN and HR in MTN. I hope you understand me. But however, MTN comes to us for research. For example, last year I led a business school in doing a research on onboarding of new employees. I'm not an HR researcher, but I do research in technology, but I can apply. So we're looking at how to be able to design a programs for onboarding. So I work with a number of faculty and we worked on that. Now, in that sense, I'm here and we are paid quite well. So I'm here doing research and that can help me here. I remember one of the faculty was working with us, he was going to get the money and buy a car and all kinds of stuff. So I can imagine that the lecturer is here and you did the money, did the job here, wants you to buy a car. But here is what gave him the job, that gave him opportunity of respect for these people to attract him. So the applied research group, what they do is that they will fund the research that can be done in the pure research in the developing country primarily. But in the US, you may have money that in developed countries, you may have money that's coming into the pure research community, and there's also money coming into the applied research community. So there's a very good balance. But in Africa, we get money from the applied researchers to be able to fund research in the pure research community. So since you are going to be researchers in the future, I'm telling you that keep an eye on the practice as much as you do you also publish in the pure research. So pure research activities involves publishing your papers. So you get promoted by publishing papers and publishing in the high ranking journals. But that will not give you any money in the applied research. The applied research is about writing reports. So when I took you to my research project website, I showed you how we are working on different reports for global institutions. And as we work on these different research reports for global institutions, we get more resources to be able to inform our research and publications in the scientific community. So usually good scientists are those who are having that good balance. If you go around the university and you look at those who are having very good, even in medical field, the people who are getting a lot of research money from the Wellcome Trust in the UK, and then the NHS in the UK, and then I think the National Scientific Foundation, NSF, in the US, are those who are doing cut-breaking things because they are doing interesting research that they can publish. Yeah, but whatever it is, I'm just trying to let you appreciate that the work that you are going to be able to grow to become a professor and stuff, you need to be publishing. The scientific community will make you a professor, but practitioners will not make you a professor. But they will give you very good research money to be able to do good research, to be able to fund some of the things they do as a practitioner, as an academic. However, it doesn't mean that all professors are very good researchers in the consultancy world. Some of them are very, very narrow focus on their research, and they cannot think in practice. And that's one sometimes you see them coming on TV and they talk and say, but we don't get what he's saying. Why? Because that person is too much into his research. He doesn't know how the research should be communicated in the way that the politician and the policymaker can understand. So one of the things that we try to do, and I don't know whether this semester I can do that, is to teach you how to carry your research and turn into a policy brief so that the government can make decisions out of it. Otherwise, every research you do just sit down as a publication. And most of the time, business school and the other places, most business school even do better. In some of the other places you go, and most of the research sits down. Apart from what you see in the scientific community with the medical sciences and healthcare sciences, quite a number of the researchers sit down. They don't translate into policy. There's a few that are doing very cutting edge research that are able to move from the pure research and get into applied research. I'm challenging you that as a researcher, as you grow, try to move your work from the pure research field to impact on the applied research field. I hope you got that analogy well.
Very welcome.
Yes, sir. We are grateful.
So the purpose of research has to do with the fact that you need to be able to make a choice. Why are you doing your research? Is it to explore, to describe, or explain? Now, these three reasons has different objectives and what outcomes. For example, exploratory research usually is carried out in a research area that we don't have much knowledge about. So we are trying to understand what is happening. So we try to do that research by exploring where little is known or literature has been done, either in the context that's a research site or on the topic. Let me give an example. There is much knowledge on female, even entrepreneurship. If I Google entrepreneurship right now, you have a lot of information coming about entrepreneurship. If I narrow down to female entrepreneurship, I also get quite some good information. However, when I move towards giving it a particular domain, female entrepreneurship in the extractive industry, then I'm narrowed down in the extractive industry, and I'm trying to ask that what are the antecedents of female entrepreneurship in the extractive industry, especially when the pits are closed. Now, what I mean by pits are closed, it means that in the extractive industry, when a pit is open, then they find a resource in it, they dig it, and the pits are open. Now, when they open up a pit, it sets up business in the community. And because of the fact that people are moving there to go and mine, other businesses are stirred up. So other entrepreneurial activities stir up there. And some of them are led by women, those who are providing catering facilities, like selling wachi, food and stuff for people, others selling water, others may be selling. Now, because people have moved to the community, there are other maybe bread, so bakery will be set up. So a lot of businesses are triggered by the extractive industry or that particular setup by the extractive industry or by the pit that was opened up in that particular locality. Now, when the mineral resource is exhausted, they shut it down and they have to fill the pit. As soon as you fill the pit and you shut down that extractive business, you have to move to another town. So it can have an impact on the fact that there are no more people. The population of miners in the town will reduce, and when it reduces, it has an impact on entrepreneurial activity there. So I'm more concerned about looking at female entrepreneurship in the localities that the extractive setup has been shut down. Now that is a different type of research, and because we don't know much about it, it could be very exploratory in nature. You see how the topic is. So you have chosen a topic which is very is well researched. Entrepreneurship is well researched. Female entrepreneurship relatively is gaining more attention in developed countries. But to make the work unique, you have put it in a domain that has nothing. We don't know much about it, and you are even look at the domain in a particular timeline, and that timeline is when we shut down that particular extractive business. So that then gives us a different dynamic, so that we can be able to contribute something new. So what are we studying? We are looking at the impact of the impact on female entrepreneurship when the trigger of the entrepreneurial activity becomes non-existent or is reduced. How does it affect female entrepreneurship? That is what we are doing. Just that the domain is now in the extractive industry. I can apply it to something else. I can even apply it to what's the name? Those of you who have lived in Ghana for a very long time, do you remember Panafest? Who is old enough to remember Panafest? Panafest. Hey, Zelda, you are not born, so you don't remember.
Yes,
yes, Prof. Pan-Africa Festival.
Good. What was it about?
So it's a festival to celebrate.
It was not. It is.
Yes. Okay. It was a festival to celebrate Africans in the diaspora.
Okay.
More or less bring them together so they can chart a course to develop Africa.
And in Ghana, where was it taking place largely?
Cape Coast.
Good. So can you imagine a number of small tourism businesses that were generated because of that? Then it was the time of the reign of Rawlings as a democratic leader, and a little bit of the reign of, I think, the reign of
President Kufuor.
After Kufuor died, and I think the current president tried to resurrect it by doing is it coming home back or going home back? What was it called?
Year of Return.
Year of Return. But I think he did it a year, and it has gone again. But there was a time that it was more of an annual event, if you remember. I don't know why tourism sector is not bringing it back, but it was a very good festival. Now, interestingly, a lot of businesses were set up because of that. Everybody was looking towards that time. Even it had impact on the airline business. It had an impact on airline agencies, flight agencies, and travel agencies. It had an impact on travel and tour companies, and even car renting companies, vehicle renting companies. Then they also have other female businesses that were started up, like the rest areas and the hospices that were set up out of these things. And then other people too who were more of doing food tourism. They were cooking different Ghanaian food around that time. Now you just shut down that festival. It has a whole impact on entrepreneurial activity, especially for women. Nobody's studying that. So that is what I mean by exploratory research. Can do a research in something that either not much is known in the research site or the topic. Sometimes the topic. For example, in 2003, 2002, 2003, up to about 2008, most of the research on mobile phones in Ghana and in developing countries was very exploratory because we didn't know much about it. So if you look at some of my publications in that area, you have papers like preliminary insights into m-commerce adoption, that's mobile commerce adoption in Nigeria. So I was doing that work with one of my students in Nigeria. Now, it was preliminary insights because we didn't know much about that exploratory nature. But today, when you have a penetration that is over 120%, you can't call it exploratory now. Now you are looking at more of explanatory variables, why people are not behave this particular way on mobile platforms or not. For example, last year I did something again with MTN, and in my personal capacity, I was looking at MTN wanted to understand how local folklore can influence adoption of MTN products across the country. So we're trying to look at how what is the Africanism behind how people adopt and use mobile phones. So I try to look at things like decry symbols. We picked 3 symbols to use to look at that. Interesting report. So we tried to find out that there was in Ramadan, that is about leadership, how Ghanaians see them. Then there was another one to the 2 other ones that are there. Now, all of these symbols were captured in the way Ghanaians were viewing MTN and its related products, and what they also see MTN in the future, and what they expect of MTN. But it was that the research theory was based on these decry symbols were used as a theoretical framework to be able to look at this issue. Now, this is me going to African arts and African Institute of African Studies to pick a theorization of African symbols and apply it in a technology way to understand why people act a particular way around MTN products. And I even study MTN themselves came from later the research problem and brought it to me because they have seen that culture is influencing how their adoption is spreading across the area. And we found out that in the northern region, businessmen expected MTN workers and MTN salespersons to be more knowledgeable about certain products, and they were making choices between them and Vodafone because even though they said they were the leader, when it came to certain things, Vodafone was more friendly to them than them. So they had to change. That has impact on how you train a salesperson in that one. So that's now marketing coming in. So what am I trying to say? In exploratory research, you can end up finding things which are even beyond your discipline. But because you are doing a PhD, you have to know how you can communicate it so that you stay within a PhD. But if you are doing practice research or applied research, that one then you can delve into other things. But if you are doing the PhD, you have to make sure that you focus on where your discipline is and then make implications to other disciplines for future research directions. Okay, so look at this. An example, to explore the antecedents and outcome of engagement with videos on social media platforms among Gen Z consumers. Now, social media platforms research is booming over the last 10 years. So if you want to do social media research in Ghana, it's not anything strange. However, the concept about engagement is what people want to study. That why do people like a page? Why do people put a smiley? Why do people put a heart? But this thing is done among certain people. But in research in Ghana right now, in Africa in general, which I'm trying to also see what we can do about that, the Generation Z studies, that what I mean by Generation Z is that generational studies, where we look at particular age groups, it's not being done. So that's one thing that we even have to explore with MTN2. That generational age groups, people like studying, I want to study SME adoption of SME finance, SME financing among SMEs. But if you're not very careful, what about SME financing among financing with respect to the age of the age group of the founder of the SME? Are Generation Z SME owners more likely to go for a particular type of financing than theirs? Why am I saying that? Currently, there are different financing models. There is crowdsourcing in terms of finance, where you can go online, post your project, and you can get different seed funds from people suggesting that they want to help you. There are so many platforms like that. Now, when you're using crowdsourcing to be able to get financing, you may not see that one more inclined to traditional businessmen who may be aged 35 and above. But these young guys who are doing from 18 to about 30, who are now doing their own startups, they are now looking on using social media and things to be able to draw resources. So they'll post their things on social media. Can you help me do this? I'm doing this. Can anybody help me with this? So the way they will finance their company may be a little bit different from how older people will finance. But because we are not looking at the generational differences, we think that SME financing research doesn't mean any more persons. But a finance student today can do SME financing research, but come from the traits of the owner of the finance of the SME. The owner or the founder of the SME, the traits, by looking at age, by looking at his social media savviness. And that can be interesting in terms of a purpose or interesting in terms of exploratory research. Please, do you understand me?
Yes, Prof. Very insightful.
Okay.
Yes, Prof.
Somebody is writing his topic, and somebody said, Prof, I said my topic. Hey, this one, I'm sorry. Okay, so we can have different things. So let's take an example. To examine antecedents and outcomes on online health information seeking behavior on social media platforms. So now online health information seeking is something that's happening now. A lot of people are seeking for healthcare information on the internet. So how does what shapes this one? What shapes this one? Now we are doing some work in this area in relation to the e-pharmacy project that the vice president is working on. I helped develop the policy for it, which was ratified by a committee. So now we developed the platform for that, and we are studying how Ghanaians respond to health information and kind of respond to, especially pharmaceutical information. How do they look for information on medicine and drugs online? And it's quite interesting, the findings that we are coming up with to inform the development of the platform. So you see that sometimes you may end up coming up with ideas that are new because you are trying to do exploratory research. Now, this is one too is coming up here, the consumer and patient intention of made in Ghana vehicles. You want to look at the differences between different generations. Now, I'm staying on generation research just as an example, that anybody from any field of study can do a generation research, because this is the in thing that we know we need now, because we don't know how different consumers and different types of citizens are responding to what happens in Ghana. So Generation Z are one group. Those are those ones born after 1980. No, the 1990. Then those who are born after the millennials, Generation Y, after 1979 and above. Then Generation Z are also there. So you see there are different age groups that exist, and we want to look at the one who has more power to buy is the Z guy, but the Y2 are new in their jobs. I said the one who are more power to buy is the X guy, because they may have been working relatively more than the others. But I want to see what is their view or their patient intention of made in Ghana vehicles. And this one is another one that I'm recommending, like I'm using an example for you, like citizen engagement with government on digital platform. Which generation will likely engage with government more? The Z, the Y, and X. And what kind of content would they engage with? If you look at Arise Ghana and then Copycat Ghana, they are more of coming from Generation X who initiated it, but made louder by Generation Y. And made more viral by Generation Z. That's the relationship we are seeing here. Generation X, like Generation X, like Captain Smart and the rest, Sami Jenfi, Generation X citizens are the ones who are initiating that one. But they have got foot shoulders who are in the Generation Y, and then new political recruits in the Generation Z. The question is that when they go for the demonstration and the police is coming, which of the generation stands there to talk? Is it the X, the Y, or Z? That would be interesting from the recent happenings in the country. I wonder who can answer that one for me. when the Ghana police is coming, which of the generations will leave first? Anyway, so we have here too that the latter one has to the use of, this is interesting to me actually. I just recommended this some time ago. I said X will leave first. Okay, thank you very much, Norbert. Okay, so here we have antecedents and outcomes of consumer use of emoticons or emotional icons. The emotional icons are the ones that you click on to like, share, to say you have liked the page, to show your reaction on the page in engagement with online information or brands among Generation Z, Y, and X. Then antecedents and outcomes of consumer adoption of financial products. Okay, now there are some financial products that Generation Y like a lot, and then Generation Z like a lot, and Generation X like, and even insurance products too. They can see, for example, what will be the first insurance product that a Generation Z will adopt, will sign up for?
Health insurance.
Health insurance.
MHIS.
Good. It's likely to be that. So, but I surprise you that somebody will also say, you are saying it because they want health insurance, but you may realize that it may be the car. I'm not saying that is all the truth all the time. And what will influence that one? The healthcare, because you think is about what people may want. But ask yourself, let's go to Ghana NHI and find out to what extent are Generation Z registered as in the population of registered members. How many are Generation Z? How many are Generation Y? How many are Generation X? That will be interesting to also look at. Okay. Now, descriptive research tries to look at a systematic way of describing a problem. So they go beyond the exploratory to look at how something is occurring. So it's not about what is happening there, but how is it occurring? So they usually do ask questions of what and how, not just what, but what and how. So you may see that what are the attitudes? Now look at the question. Let's read the question very well. What are the attitudes of the community towards the community library? What are the living conditions in the farming communities in Ghana? Now, somebody can say that this could be exploratory. Now, and then another person can also say that this could be exploratory, and another person will say that this is descriptive. Now, the reason why we push for more exploratory for the first one, what are the attitudes of the community? Attitudes are something that you need to be able to describe. So you are not, if you say what are the perception of the perceptions of the people towards the community library, their perception, you don't need to be in the library. You can actually ask people on the streets. But when you're talking about attitudes, you need to actually see it in performance. So you need to go to the library and actually see how people act in the library. Or even if you're outside the library, you have to see their behavior towards the library, not their your perception about it. Perception can be exploratory, but the attitudes have to be described. For example, you have come to know that in the community library, some people have been hiding books or been tearing pages from the books. So why do the people do that? Then when you start adding the why, then you're asking for explanatory. How did the people do that? Is the descriptive one. So what are the attitudes? What type of attitudes are you going to explore? Are you going to describe from this? Maybe coming from you going there observing. So when I went to the library, I found out there are three groups of the people. People who come to the library to sleep. They say the library is a quiet place. So whenever they are tired, they come and sit down to sleep and then take a nap. Oh, it's true. I've seen that happening before in the business university of Ghana. People live far away. When they drive and come to the university, they are tired. And when they eat between lectures, they go to the library and go and sit there and sleep because the air condition is good. If you sit in your car, you have to use your fuel to power the air conditioning, which at the end of the day, and the lecture halls too, they'll close the lecture halls in between lectures. And sometimes it's very difficult to go and sleep in the lecture hall because anybody can enter the thing. But the library, you can just bend down your head like you are reading and sleep. Nobody will disturb you. You just put your phone on silent. There are people too who come to the library to come and do their own discussions and stuff. So they are parts of the library, some library. For example, when we renovated the undergraduate library in the business school, we set up a place. I was chairing the committee, so we set up a place that has for students to do discussion because the students were finding it difficult to have places to do discussion. So there's a place in the undergraduate library that you can do the discussion. When we did the same thing, when we did a similar thing in the graduate block, I think we also did something like that for them. So in the graduate block, you see that there are some places in the library that you can sit together and you can sit in sofas. The idea was to let people sit there and quietly have discussions. So I've seen supervisors even having discussion with their students they are supervising in the library before. Now, it is because of understanding the attitudes of the students, that is why we created that environment. So you see how attitude can actually inform, not perception of attitude, perceptions of the community, but the attitudes of the people. Now, when you're talking about living conditions too, you need to describe the living conditions. So you cannot just say what are perception. Perception will lead to exploratory, but if you're looking at the actual living condition to describe, you need to go to the community and ask some questions and ask some metrics and even visit them in their workplaces to be able to describe the living conditions of the people. So this descriptive research will systematically like to describe a phenomenon or situation or problem. Whilst explanatory research would like to go beyond the how and add the why. So as soon as we go beyond the how to add the why, we are doing explanatory. Now, then somebody asks a prof, can there be a PhD that somebody is doing all the three? That's a very interesting question because technically somebody will say yes. He will start with the exploratory, after he understands, then you come to describe how the thing occurs. Then you finalize by why it occurs. But if that is what your PhD is about, by starting progressively through all the three questions, the most important thing I will ask you that which of the questions is your primary question of answering. If your primary question is about understanding why something occurs, then your whole study is about explanatory. But you are passing through the path of exploratory to descriptive to explanatory. So your objective is to do explanatory study. So you are going to put all the rigors to be able to end up explaining why. But if your objective is descriptive, like my PhD was trying to develop a model to explain how and why. Was it how and why? I can't even remember my PhD title. That's why I say you may close. Let me open the PhD itself and then tell you what it was about. I can't remember the title. I remember the title, but I can't remember the actual research question that I had. Okay. Just give me a second. My PhD is already online, so and Obed can make it available to the class later. Okay, so PhD. Okay, so the PhD title was a resource-based theory analysis of electronic commerce in developing countries. Okay, so so this is the PhD. So resource-based analysis of electronic commerce in developing countries. That's the PhD title. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay. So let's look at the research question. Okay. 9 chapters, so you can look at it. So if you look at the research question, how can, so you see it's descriptive, how can firms in developing countries develop, deploy, and manage resources to implement and realize e-commerce benefits amidst their national constraints? So it's descriptive in nature. How can? But I said the purpose of the study is to develop a theoretical framework which explains how. So if you don't take care, you say this is explanatory, but no. The question itself was how can? Now the how can was to generate a model that can explain the how. But my objective was how can. So I did a descriptive study. Please, I'm not saying that any how study, every how study will be explanatory, but I'm trying descriptive. But I'm trying to tell you that what is your objective of doing the work? Where are you focusing? Are you going to answer a particular question that is more about how or what or why? That can guide you to know whether you're doing explanatory, exploratory, and then the extent of rigor you want to put into the work. So I wanted to do how can. Because of the how can, the subsequent questions in the study was about this. Let me see if I can. Okay, so look at it. I don't have any why, so I can't say I'm explanatory. What is the level of e-commerce assimilation in developing in Ghanaian firms? A what question, which is exploratory. What value are Ghanaian firms drawing from e-commerce is exploratory. What value? So now I described the value. What is the level? Because I didn't know what was happening, so I needed to explore what is the level of the assimilation. So I published a paper out of this one. What value are they gaining by establishing level? What is the effect of resources on e-commerce assimilation in Ghanaian firms? The process. How are Ghanaian firms capturing value? That value I explored here. How are they capturing that value? What is the impact? So if you realize, the main question I was answering is the how, and that is here. So my PhD model was about here. How are you doing it? So let's be very careful how we use the word exploratory, explanatory, and stuff. So if you look at it here. Explore, understand, that describe, explore. So all the what question went to explore. But the how question went to understand, that is describing. So the PhD was on the how. But if we go to do a how, I need an input into the how. And I want to also know the impact of the how. But if I was going to ask why do people do something, then I'm going to more of it. But I'm going to more of explanatory. But be careful. I've got students that are doing why and how PhDs, and they still end up doing either descriptive or exploratory because of the knowledge, the existing knowledge of the area. For example, there are areas of study that there is not much knowledge in that area. So you still end up being at the exploratory level. But when much knowledge has been achieved and the factors have been described, you go to explanatory because you can then find the dependencies between factors. And that leads you to explanatory research. So explanatory research, which is done especially with the quantitative researchers who are in the room here, you see that they try to look for why does this one have an effect? What is the moderating effect of this and that? They are trying to explain. So you end up realizing that the explanatory researches or research process always try to look at things for a quantitative person, explanatory variables or variables that will try to tell us the differences between two things. So they'll have moderating variables, they'll have things like the mediating variables. So they will not look at just single relationship. For example, class attendance predicts your grade. So they say that the class attendance predicts grade, but they'll try to look at what are the mediating factors, what are the moderating factors to that. And that will give them a very complex model, and that will lead them to more of an explanatory phenomenon, depending on the level of knowledge in that area. So where much knowledge is established, explanatory research will seek to understand and explain why the situation is occurring in a particular way. Usually they'll ask questions on why and how a particular phenomenon occurs, or why there exists a relation between two or more variables. So it is going beyond merely describing characteristics, which a descriptive study will do, to analyze and explain why or how something is happening. That's what an explanatory research will do. Okay, but to tell you the truth, whichever research area you choose to carry out, as you are doing the research, you get to know whether you are moving towards more explanatory or exploratory. Because the knowledge in the area will guide you. The knowledge in the area, what has been published in the area will guide you. Then you also have approach the research and the time dimension in terms of the inquiry procedure. In terms of the inquiry procedure, there are people who ask questions quantitatively. They like to describe things by quantifying them, or explain things by quantifying variations. So they will use quantitative methods to do that research. And most of the methods of collection of data is survey approach. Qualitative try to explore the meanings and attitudes people bring to a phenomenon. And to unravel that meaning, they do a qualitative research that to describe a social phenomena and try to tell you what are the meanings and attitudes and values people associate with it. An example is the fact that when I go to the chief's house in a part of northern region, now I will see an animal skin that the chief may be sitting on. However, if I join, let's say, Adoma, and I go to, or Adra, and we go to US, and we go to Donald Trump's house, we may see a similar skin of that animal on a wall as an art impression or artwork that have been pictures when he came to Ghana. Now, that artwork that is there may be millions of cedis or millions of dollars, but that artwork has a different meaning of showing how rich he is and how connected he is and how resourceful he is. But for the king to sit on the lion's head in the northern region in Ghana or even the southern region of Mali, it has a position of power and cultural significance, ancestral underpinnings that has different meaning. So each of us has got a lion head. Even in Kenya, it has a different meaning that we have hung on a wall, or somebody is sitting in a palace in Kenya or in Swaziland or in Ghana. When we compare that to what Donald Trump is doing, they all have different meanings. Your job as a qualitative research is to find the meanings people associate with the phenomenon. Not all phenomena have the same meanings to everybody. Not all phenomena have the same meaning to everybody. We may have different meanings. So we need to unravel the meanings people associate with the phenomena that we are studying. And that's what qualitative researchers do. For example, again, you see that pen that is in your hand that some of you are using to write whether it's big pen or it is Hewlett Packard Bell pen or whichever pen it is. The pen that you have in the examination context is different from what it means to you. Examination, you're writing exams by hand. They say 5 minutes more and the pen stops writing. That means to an end that you have in your hand, now it has a different meaning to you. You really be begging for another pen. Now, when we give that same pen to a class and to a parent, the child has gone to school, he has come back home, and he brings a document that daddy is supposed to sign for me to go to a field trip. That pen is signature. There is a sense of responsibility that is being transferred to the school. It has a different meaning. The pen has, in that context, has a different meaning. Now let's take that is 1st July, 7th January. The president is come to give an opening address in celebration of a republic or whatever it is at the beginning of the year. Maybe you are commissioning a new president. The new president comes in, he's supposed to give amnesty. So he's giving amnesty to prisoners, and it gets to your own. Your document comes in front of him. He's come to sign, and the pen stops writing. He can't sign. He asks the room there, has anybody got a pen so I can sign this person's own? And nobody has a pen. So only you, when you go to the time for the president to sign amnesty for you, there's no pen there. Now, at that point in time, the pen has a meaning, different meaning for what the president is using to sign. The same thing is that we go to embassy to pick your American visa. They say sign here and pick your visa, and your pen is not. You need a pen to sign. That signature you are penning there has a different meaning. So the pen has not been changing. The same pen, big pen, is the same pen. Maybe a little bit of the ink is finished is used as we go through different scenarios. But the pen is still the same pen. What is different is that the circumstances and the context have been changing. Qualitative researchers want to try to explain that the circumstances and the context that researchers find themselves or the respondents find themselves has make them associate meanings to it. So in the research, we are supposed to unravel these meanings so that we can be able to define the meaning of a pen. So if I look at all these scenarios, a pen has a diversity of meanings. A pen can be a sign of responsibility, a sign of freedom, a sign of power. I'm giving different scenarios of what a pen can be because of the fact that I've qualitatively been able to unravel the meaning of a pen at different circumstances, different contexts. Qualitative researchers are interested in that. You can't quantify this one. When I run a quantitative study and I bring a questionnaire, I can just give the questionnaire to all of you to answer. Now, one interesting thing about quantitative research is that, and most of the positivist research, is that there's a degree of separatedness between the researcher and the research participant or respondent. I don't need to be in the same room for you to fill my questionnaire. That's why I can give it to you online for you to complete. But with the qualitative research, he is picking up on your mannerisms as he's researching you. He's picking up on the inflections in your voice. You ask a question and he's animated about it, and the other ones he's not animated about it. It means that they may be different. There may be passion in something, maybe no passion in other thing. He has to capture that. That researcher is watching everything, even the way you dress, how you answer a question, how you presented yourself, what you said. I asked a question, you put your chair forward before you answered it. But the other question, you relaxed and sat down and answered it. All of this has implications on the answers you are giving me. I need to capture all of that in part of my research. When I got to the research environment, it was a busy time. There were people moving up and around before you gave me an opportunity to come and sit in your office. All of it has to be captured because all of it shows a context in which the data was collected that can inform the way the data was answered. Now, as the question was answered, as you're answering the question, you got 3 phone calls. After each phone call, the way you are answering the question can change because maybe certain things were said. When I entered the room, I realized that you also went to pre-sec as I went to pre-sec. So I said, oh, that day, we just exchanged some pleasantries. And we started talking about the teacher who used to teach us. Because of that conversation, I moved my question 1. I changed from question 1, I went to question 3. And you answered my question 3, which is a more difficult question about sensitive issues in the office or the company I'm asking you. But because of the pre-sec salutation that we did, you were more in a relaxed state to answer that one. I caught you off guard and you answered that one honestly for me. Then I came back to question 2 and 3 and asked you a question. Qualitative researcher will be doing all these things. Quantitative will not do it. So qualitative is doing different, bringing different perspectives to the research. Mixed method is when we combine the strengths of both to be able to get better research results. I'm not saying that doing one will not give you a good research result, but it helps you to get a better picture or a different picture. And sometimes it may be required to build a holistic picture of what is being done. Nobody says that it's like seeing 3 branches in the road. It could mean a 40 car ahead in Ghana, or it can mean in East Africa, elephant has crossed the road. It's true. I've lived in East Africa before, so I know what he's talking about. Exploratory work-life conflict, coping strategies of female parent working students. Interesting. Okay, so let's continue. We are just about finishing so that the finance students can go. So I will round it up here. So a quantitative researcher would like to look at variations and relationship between variables. So that's why they may have a hypothesis, like students who obtain grade A never miss a class. A qualitative researcher may like to ask questions that can help him describe a phenomenon. What is the working condition in the banking industry? What are the perceptions of traditional medicines among nurses? Now, qualitative does not mean that it cannot be exploratory. Quantitative, being exploratory, descriptive, or explanatory, that has nothing to do with whether quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods. Any of them can inherit. So don't mix the two. That if you are doing quantitative, you cannot do descriptive. No. A person can do quantitative and still be doing descriptive study. He'll use descriptive analysis, which the quantitative students here can tell you about it to present his results. Okay. But if a person is doing explanatory study in quantitative, you will see more of structural equation modeling in his work, because he has to do modeling to explain relationship between variables. In terms of the time dimension, you can have cross-sectional study. When I give you a question and you answer now, I cut across time, you answer now. So it's everything you are telling me is about now. But there's also, for the richness of research, especially in qualitative research, we have longitudinal studies. Longitudinal studies can either pick a panel of people you want to study over time. So I pick 3 students here and I keep on asking you the same question at a particular periodic times. So I can say every 6 months I come back and ask you these questions. So I've chosen a panel and I study the changes in the experiences you are going through over time. Or I can do a cohort study. I choose from a class. So I choose class of 2022 PhD students in UGBS. But every time I come, I sample from the class. So it's the cohort I've chosen. I've chosen a cohort of students. But in each time I sample a different set of students to do my study over time. Now, the population which is the same. The different respondents are sampled each time. The researcher aim here is to see if the changes in the perceptions or trends, to see whether there are changes in perceptions or trends that occur in the study. Okay. So as I choose different people and time is going to do, are there changes in the perception or trends as I look at it? Okay, then the longitudinal study, we can also have time series where you pick some variables of a phenomenon and study over time. Like you have trends in levels of crime in Medina. So you can look at trends in level of crime over time and try to plot a graph that may come from data of how many crime was reported from by who reported it, as compared to maybe a female reporting and a male reported it over time in Medina. Now, so this is in a nutshell the different things that we can do in terms of research. So we've got the way we look at it in terms of application, applied research, and then basic research or pure research. Then in terms of the method of inquiry, you can have quantitative, qualitative, and then mixed methods where you combine the two. Sometimes in the mixed method, you can have a sequential where you are mixing one method after the other. So qualitative will come after quantitative. Yeah. Or quantitative after, or you can have parallel, can do the two at the same time. All of them have got the advantages and disadvantages. And then you can also have, in terms of the purpose of the study, explanatory, exploratory, and then descriptive. But the other side, there could be others too. Now there's even predictive research, prescriptive research, but those ones are come from analytics. And you see that those who come from the analytics perspective do that type of research. They are looking at data to prescribe and then prescribe, and then also sometimes they want to be able to use the data to predict. Okay. So I will end here for the next class. To those of you who have to jump into another class, you can go for the next class. So, any questions? Those of you who are staying behind for about 5 minutes, you can ask your questions.
Prof?
Yes, please.
This is not a question. This is just encourage you. I think I've enjoyed the lesson so much. I've learned a lot. I didn't even expect that the first session would be this enlightening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Truly, in the light we have seen light.
How do you say it in Latin?
Prof, I didn't go to your school. I went to Accra Academy. The only academy.
He said Bleuman.
Can you repeat it?
He said Bleubi.
Okay.
Hello, Prof.
Yeah. Please, those who are in finance, you can leave and go. Those who have to leave and go, we respectfully ask you that you can leave and go. Yes.
So you when you were touching on the uses of the research, we mentioned the pure research, that's the rigorous one, and then we mentioned the ones with the specific beneficiaries, such as a company, an organization, or a group of individuals, and then we mentioned the
government,
social impact, government. Yes, okay. So with our PhD thesis, must we find all of these uses for our research? Must it meet all these categories, or we can target just one? Because my challenge is that if, for instance, your PhD is sponsored by an organization, they are more interested in the outcome, if you're able to provide answers to their questions. But then if your methodology or the process through which you collected and analyzed data is not rigorous, which the academia will be more interested in, that means that the result or the outcome will be flawed, which means that even if they implement your recommendations, it will not actually address their problem.
Okay, it's a very good question. The problem we have in many of the applied research is what you mentioned. Some people rush it and they don't do it rigorously. And because of that, you see that sometimes government go and implement and it doesn't work. So you see the UN and the other institutions now rather calling upon researchers who are from the mainstream university to help them do the research. And then they themselves will take the results and go and communicate it themselves. So currently, even government is doing that. You let researchers do the research and then they will communicate it the way we want to communicate it politically. So what you are saying is right. But for a PhD, you're actually solving the contribution to knowledge, and philosophy. So it's the first one you are doing, and you publish too, first one. But part of your recommendations in the end of your PhD is to look at the implication to policy and practice. So that one too will come from there. Number two, a PhD can actually be triggered by practice, and it will lead to the other side. So somebody may, like the healthcare, look at what has happened in the pandemic. Somebody was looking at how government institutions and quasi institutions were able to collaborate together in the healthcare sector to be able to address the pandemic. So he now has a PhD, he wants to look at how we can work effectively. And then you pick a theory to be able to understand how did they work effectively, or theorize how Ghana worked effectively to be able to minimize our pandemic effects. And out of that, he may end up coming up, extending existing theory or building a new theory. So it can be that you can pick from it. In that case, you are benefited from both. Just that if he's communicating to the audience of Ghana Health Service, he'll communicate it in a way they will understand. Currently, like this, my PhD students, when you finish your PhD, when you finish your PhD draft, you are supposed to pick your findings and go and look for a particular company or institution or where you collected data and present it to them as part of what I expect you to do to get a post-study feedback and capture it in your PhD. The reason is that I want you to be able to understand whether your work is having relevance. And because most of the time the students develop a very nice model, and I went through the same thing in my PhD. My model was very interesting, it got published, but I couldn't implement it because it was very, very inward looking to researchers. It was nothing to do with practitioners. So I started telling students that now you need to be able to present that. How is your model more relevant to implement in practice? How can they use your model? How can practitioners use the model? Somebody took his work to one of my PhD students who has submitted right now. She took her work to the industry and they told her that your model is missing a feedback loop. Because the problem that we have been happening in the industry is what you have described, but you didn't look at the feedback loop. The feedback loop means that when we as Ghana Health Service are doing something, we want you to have a feedback to the people we are trying to do it for. So that when we are doing it, we always look back at the feedback to see whether we can improve the process. So the person then put in his implementation, in the final model, the feedback loop that came from the post-study framework, post-study engagement. But most of the students, after they collect the data, they close their mind to practice. They don't talk to them again. And they go and finish it and give it to the supervisor is happy. But that work, when somebody comes from Ministry of Health or from Ghana military service, come and sit down. You say you're studying HR in the military. You listen to you and say, okay. But we have seen this problem already, but you are not giving us the solution. What you thought that was the solution is not the solution. It's the problem that they already know. Well, they have not been sitting with the thing for 3 years and they have not solved it. Your PhD was supposed to solve it, but because you are focused on also contributing to philosophy, you unraveled it and told the story for academics to learn, but you have not solved the problem for the practitioner. So we are very good in telling the story for academics to learn and other people across the world to know, oh, so this is the problem in Ghana military, oh, this is the problem in Ghana military. But we have not solved the problem for the Ghana military people. So when they come to your Viva, they ask that, but the solution was not presented. And we like this very, very high level recommendation. So Ghana military should consider bringing new HR managers to solve the problem. You have not said anything. After that one, they know they should be bringing. What should the new HR manager should do? The position structure should be changed. This now when promotion is due, there should be incentives for this and this, and that's like more instructive, now more high attractive and very high level.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Please, if you are working in Ghana military, I don't know anything. I'm just using as an example. Don't come tomorrow morning. Don't come for me. I know there are some politicians and maybe MPs and 2 years. So, please, if you're an MP or a senior politician here, let me know early, so that you don't tell me when government sends you. Then you let me know early that you are, so that I can expect how, in case there are some other resources, we should get to you on time. We get it on time whenever you are in parliament or you are in your constituency. But if you are not, come and tell me you are, please, it will not be helpful. Okay.
And Prof, I posted a comment. I posted a comment in the comment section. There was a sample of a topic from me, Richmond.
Okay, Richmond. Okay.
Exploratory study: work-life conflict coping strategies of female parents working students.
Okay.
I want to know whether the topic fits the example of the exploratory study.
Okay, work-life conflicts, coping strategies of female parents. But you said this one, what you have told us is just we don't know the context you are placing it in.
Okay, so we are looking at the female who are parents, plus those who have children and are working at the same time schooling.
In Ukraine or Russia?
In Ghana.
Okay. So what you need to do is to go and find out whether work-life conflict is a relevant theme in the current discussions in the literature.
Okay.
And then female parent. You see, when you say female parent, it's very difficult. Are you talking about mothers? Or
I'm talking about mothers, yes.
Yeah, so I think we'll look at the correct terminology too.
Okay.
Correct terminology. So there's working mothers. There's literature on working mothers. I don't know whether there's literature on something called female parents. I know there's literature on working mothers.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you see, the current study in this area, they are using, in terms of work-life balance, they are using what we call the socio-ecological model, where they look at the role of the different levels of society. So you have got at the socio-ecological model, you have the interpersonal, you have the community, you have the organizational, and you have got the environment. All of them are about 4 different levels. So you start from the person, the interpersonal, the community, organization, And then those are different dimensions of how people can get support or help. We use it for health promotion studies, and we also use it for studying a lot of interventions and how what can be impacted on. So, in what you have mentioned, I think the socio-ecological model can give you the different perspectives. The healthcare students here can tell you they understand what I'm saying. The socio-ecological model can help you. Maybe we can talk later, and then I can send you literature in that area.
Yes, Prof. Come and see you.
Me, you find
you. Oh, I'll send you an email.
That'll be the best. I'm very virtual. Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Anything? Okay. Thank you very much. So let's get feedback from what people learned. Because I'm sure I want to get summaries for the video. So what do people learn? Let me get the last two questions before we talk about what people learned.
Prof. Hello, Prof.
Yes.
Prof, based on your explanation, can I say the approach of the research is akin to the philosophy of the researcher?
Is akin to what?
To the philosophy of the researcher.
Yes. The philosophy has an implication, but people don't even know. Not everybody has a philosophy. So some of the students don't even have philosophy. So even not having a philosophy can even affect the way you do your research. Some people say they are pragmatists, they don't subscribe to any philosophy. In other words, they are saying that they don't know any philosophy, they don't go by any philosophy. So it's a surprise that some researchers don't do anything by any philosophy, they just do the research. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
You're welcome. Desmond, you have a question?
Yes, Prof. In terms of the pure and applied research, where you gave an example of a PhD that was more rigorous, but it wasn't having a lot of relevance to the applied, the business field. So my question then is...
No, I didn't say it wasn't having, I said the communication of it. When you are finishing, you are communicating it at the last chapters. You have to communicate it and to contribute to research, and then communicate it to contribute to the practice. He didn't communicate to contribute to practice well. That's what I was trying to emphasize.
Okay, so that is clear. That is clear then.
The PhD is given to you by the researchers, not by the practitioners. So be careful.
Yes, Prof, but is there a situation whereby you can get a topic from practitioners, like a company?
I mentioned that you can actually be encouraged by practitioners, and then you come into the field to actually explore. Some PhDs come from people's working environments, what they have a chance upon in their workplaces, and then what they have experienced in working. Okay. Yes, please.
I want to find out whether it's more encouraging to start your research with an area, as in you have an area you're interested in, then you begin your research. Then as you progress, you find the problem statement, the gaps in literature, formulate a problem statement, and have a topic, or begin with a topic and then start the work.
Everybody begins in the way that they come to be interested in the work. So what grew your interest? Suppose interest is driven by news articles, it's driven by society and current trends, it's driven by a supervisor, it's driven by their own work experience, where they have worked, it's driven by current news in terms of phenomenon, like current affairs. It can also be driven by pure experience as a personal person, what you have as a person yourself, what you have experienced individually in your own personal life. So whatever that drives you, you have to find the topic that summarizes what is driving you. Then you start looking for literature on the topic. That will help you to find the gaps in the area. So that's what I'm just trying how I answer it. Anything can drive any person. I know somebody who was driven by a master's assignment. He did an assignment in master's class that drove him to do his PhD. Assignment he did in master's, and he just, this is interesting. Then I'll try to see what I can do. So when I was writing a PhD proposal, I went straight back into the master's assignment and picked the assignment and put it together again. Some people too can be driven by experiences that they have had in their home, in their own life, and they want to do a PhD about it. Somebody was driven by a market. If you heard about it, jealousy, you're doing a study called jealousy in the workplace. And he was driven by working in industry for a long time. He saw jealousy in the workplace. I remember when he started, he has finished now. When he started, I'm doing jealousy. We used to laugh about it. He got his data all right, and he finished his PhD. So I can't tell you what will change you, what will influence you. Maybe somebody was driven by the daughter, a 5-year-old daughter. I saw the 5-year-old daughter watching TV and dancing to an advert. And then he was discussing it with me, and I said, the impact of advertising on young children. And that became the PhD. The master's work, I can't remember all of them. The master's or PhD. But I'm trying to say that you can be driven by all of these things.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so in a nutshell, can I hear one or two people and what they learned so that we can use it to wrap up? Abdul Basit Abubakari, what do you learn? Or Vincent J, what did you learn?
All right, Prof. Good afternoon. So a couple of things. Prof, I mean from the beginning or towards the latter end.
Okay,
Yeah, so
whichever one you want to highlight. I'm not saying everything that you heard. I said, what did you learn? Just maybe you can highlight one of them.
Yeah, so the fact that, Prof, please just give me a moment and let me, I'm in a car and I don't dodge the police.
Yes. Somebody was trying to help. Is this Sheila?
This is great.
Okay, go ahead.
I learned that quantitative and quantitative methods can be done in exploratory, descriptive, and explanatory domains. Initially, I thought exploratory was purely qualitative, and then descriptive and explanatory would purely be quantitative.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. Thank you very much, Grace.
Thank you very much, bro.
Yes. Ish. I think I kicked Grace out of there. Okay, yeah. Any other person? Samuel Dobbin. What did you learn?
Hello, Prof.
Yes.
Yes, Prof, I learned about the fact that the dictate of qualitative and quantitative research are quite distinct. In the first place, whereas quantitative research seeks to look at the relationship between variables, qualitative more or less looks at issues having to do with understanding a particular phenomenon, as in issues capturing in the beliefs of individuals and a lot more, which transcends issues which quantitative research looks at.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any other lady to round it up? Sheila or Nanette?
Yes, Prof. I learned that This is Nanette. We can have pure research, which is mainly for those of us in the academic field, and then we can do applied for industry.
Okay.
And therefore, as you said earlier, industry can request for us to do research for them and they result. And so whatever we for them, they are looking at the outcome. Unlike pure research, which is more scientific based and more rigorous, looking at how we can do the research to get results.
Okay.
So that's what I learned.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there any other thing?
Prof, the only thing is that I've shared the slides, your PhD, and the link to the YouTube Richard Boateng Studios on the WhatsApp page, so they can access it.
Okay, thank you very much.
That'll be all.
Okay. So if you don't have anything now, thank you, class. When the video is made available, we'll notify you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.